More than just an apparent abduction, the Walter Collins case also uncovered a host of hidden aspects concerning impersonation, police coercion, false imprisonment, and psychiatric abuse. It remains one of the most disturbing cases to have shaken Los Angeles over 70 years ago. Now, let's go back to the 1920s USA. On the morning of March 10th, 1928, a 9-year-old boy dressed in a lumber jacket, brown corduroy trousers, black Oxford shoes, and a gray cap walked out of his front door in the Mount Washington neighborhood of Los Angeles. He had some money in his pocket. He was going to the movies. And he never came home. This is the story of Walter Collins, and it is a story that, in some ways, still has no ending. Comment number 1 to let me know you're still here with me. Christine Collins was a telephone operator raising her son largely on her own. That day, when she returned and Walter had not come home, she searched the neighborhood. She asked neighbors. She walked the streets. By nightfall, it was clear to her that something was wrong. It was not like him to be out after dark. She contacted the Los Angeles Police Department and reported her son missing on March 15th, 5 days after he disappeared. The police told her there was nothing they could do that evening. They told her to wait and see if he showed up. He did not show up. The city of Los Angeles rallied behind Christine. The police drained Lincoln Park Lake and launched a national campaign to find the boy. His disappearance had arrived at a moment of particular anguish for the city. Only 3 months earlier, in December 1927, a 12-year-old girl named Marion Parker had been kidnapped for ransom by a man named William Hickman, who would later become known as the Fox. Her dismembered body had been pushed from his car just before he was captured. Los Angeles was already living with the memory of that case when Walter vanished. The idea of another child gone was almost unbearable. Tips came in from across the region. A gas station attendant in Glendale named Richard Struthers reported seeing a dead boy wrapped in newspaper in the back of a car when a couple had stopped to ask for directions. A man named C.V. Staley followed the couple when they drove away. They briefly stopped outside a police station and then sped out of town. When both men were shown a photograph of Walter Collins, each of them said he was the boy they had seen. Other reports described a couple traveling across the state with a boy who appeared to be pleading with them to let him go. None of these leads produced a resolution. The weeks passed. The search slowed. Then, 2 months later, in May 1928, 2 more children went missing. Brothers Nelson and Louis Winslow, aged 10 and 12, disappeared while walking home to Pomona. Shortly after, the family received a letter from the boys. It said they were on their way to Mexico. A second letter arrived saying they would return once they were famous. The police could not find them. It is worth pausing here to note something the police did not connect at the time. Several weeks before Walter disappeared, in early February 1928, the headless body of a boy had been found. He was later identified as a missing child named Alvin Gothia. A neighbor had also filed a complaint about a man they believed was mistreating a boy at a poultry farm some distance from the city. The police did not see any obvious connection between these reports, the Winslow brothers, and Walter Collins. So they continued working each case in isolation. Collins's father thought former prison inmates were responsible for his son's disappearance in an attempt to get revenge. He worked at the prison's cafeteria and was responsible for reporting other inmates' infractions. With this sort of job, it is possible that he made more than a few enemies. Then, 5 months after Walter's disappearance, in August 1928, police in Illinois picked up a boy who gave his name as Arthur Kent. He told them his father had abandoned him. They placed him with a temporary family. Eventually, the boy told them his real name was Walter Collins, that he was from Los Angeles, and that he had been avoiding their questions to protect his father. Illinois authorities contacted California, sent photographs, and made arrangements to return the boy. California authorities contacted Christine Collins. They showed her the photographs. She paid $70 in travel expenses so the boy could be brought back to Los Angeles. When he stepped off the train, Christine looked at the child standing before her. She told the police immediately. This was not her son. The Los Angeles Police Department was already under pressure. The department had been caught up in multiple corruption scandals, and the embarrassing inability to locate a 9-year-old boy had drawn significant public criticism. Police Chief James Davis was watching his department's reputation erode. When Christine Collins said the boy in front of her was not Walter, the department did not accept it. Instead, Captain J.J. Jones spoke with her. He persuaded her, or perhaps pressured her, into taking the boy home on a trial basis. Just try it for a while, they said. Just give it some time. What followed those 3 weeks tells you almost everything you need to know about what Christine Collins was dealing with. She was a single working mother in 1928, living in a city where the police department was the final word on nearly everything. She brought the boy home. She observed him. She paid attention. And after 3 weeks, she was certain. The child was not Walter. He was shorter than Walter by 3 inches, a difference Walter's own teachers later confirmed. The boy did not know the things that Walter would have known. Christine gathered what she could. She brought Walter's dental records. She collected signed statements from people who had known her son personally. She returned to the police station and presented everything to Captain Jones. Jones accused her of being a lunatic. He suggested she was simply trying to make the state responsible for her child. He claimed she was attempting to embarrass the department. And then he had her committed to the psychiatric ward of the Los Angeles County General Hospital under what was known as a Code 12. A provision that allowed police to institutionalize individuals they deemed to be troublemakers. She was held there for 10 days. During that time, the boy's story began to unravel on its own. A handwriting expert was brought in to compare the 2 boys' handwriting samples. The conclusion was clear. The boy was not Walter Collins. The dental records confirmed the same thing. When questioned directly, the boy finally admitted the truth. His name was Arthur Hutchins. He was 12 years old. He told investigators that someone had told him he resembled the missing Walter Collins, and he had used that likeness to his advantage. His biological mother had died. He wanted to get as far away from his stepmother as he possibly could. He had wanted to come to California to meet a cowboy actor named Tom Mix. He had, in his own words, wanted to go to Hollywood. The police called his stepmother. She came and took him back to Illinois. Christine Collins was released from the psychiatric ward shortly after Arthur Hutchins confessed. She filed a lawsuit against the Los Angeles Police Department. She won. Captain J.J. Jones was ordered to pay her $10,800. She never received it. She returned to court multiple times over the years trying to collect, but the payment never came. While all of this had been unfolding, something else was happening outside the city. On September 15, 1928, a young man named Sanford Clark told investigators that his uncle had kidnapped him and had physically and sexually abused him over an extended period. He said his uncle was a man named Gordon Stewart Northcott, and that Northcott had operated a poultry farm in a rural area called Wineville, roughly 50 miles from Los Angeles. Sanford told investigators that Northcott had forced him to witness the abuse and murder of multiple boys. He said the victims had included Walter Collins, Nelson Winslow, and Lewis Winslow. He said that sometimes he had been forced to participate in what happened there. According to Sanford Clark, Northcott would lure boys to the ranch and, when he decided he was finished with them, would lead them into the incubator room with the hatching chicks and kill them with an axe. He covered their bodies with quicklime to destroy the evidence. Sanford told investigators they would find graves near the chicken coop. 2 graves were found. The bodies were not intact. What remained were fragments of bone. Axes recovered from the farm equipment were found to have human hair and blood on them. Scattered across the property were bones that pathologists determined had come from male children. Inside the farmhouse, there was a library book that had been checked out by one of the Winslow brothers. There were more letters addressed to the boys' parents that had never been sent. A child's whistle. Several Boy Scout badges. Nothing at the ranch was definitively linked to Walter Collins. Northcott's father, Cyrus George Northcott, contacted police 2 days after the investigation of the ranch began. He told them that his son had confessed the murders to him directly. But by then, Gordon Stewart Northcott and his mother, Sarah Louise Northcott, had already left. Gordon Stewart Northcott was arrested on September 20th, 1928 in British Columbia. His mother, Sarah Louise, was arrested in Alberta around the same time. In December, police brought Northcott back to the ranch in an attempt to recover more information. During that visit, he verbally admitted to killing 5 people, among them the Winslow brothers, Walter Collins, and a Mexican boy named Alvin Gotha. By the end of the same day, he had changed course. His written confession admitted only to the killing of Alvin Gotha. In December as well, Sarah Louise Northcott gave her own confession. She said she had killed Walter Collins herself. She said she had delivered the final blow and buried the boy near the chicken coop. Sanford Clark later said that Sarah had told him and Northcott that if they each struck the boy, then each of them would be equally guilty if they were ever caught. Sarah Louise Northcott was convicted of the murder of Walter Collins and sentenced to life in prison. Gordon Stewart Northcott's trial began in January 1929. He dismissed his defense attorneys and chose to represent himself. He admitted during proceedings that he had abused young boys, framing this admission in deeply disturbing terms. He had his mother take the stand on his behalf. She told the court that she was actually his grandmother, claiming that her husband had fathered Northcott through their daughter, Winifred. Northcott also made claims about an incestuous relationship with Sarah Louise and alleged that his father had abused him. When the time came to sign a formal written confession, he once again narrowed his account to a single killing, the murder of Alvin Gotha in February 1928. With no physical evidence directly connecting Walter Collins to the Wineville ranch, the question of what had truly happened to the boy remained, at least in the eyes of the court, unresolved. On February 13, 1929, Gordon Stewart Northcott was found guilty of 3 counts of first-degree murder. The victims named were the Winslow brothers and an unidentified boy referred to in court documents as the Headless Mexican. He was sentenced to death by hanging. Christine Collins, never believing her son was dead, became the first woman in more than 30 years to be granted permission to visit a condemned man on the eve of his execution at San Quentin. In October 1930, Northcott sent her a telegram. He told her he had lied when he denied that Walter was among his victims. He said he would tell her the truth if she came to hear it in person. She traveled to San Quentin. When she arrived, Northcott told her he did not want to see her, that he knew nothing about her son, that he was innocent. Gordon Stewart Northcott was executed by hanging at San Quentin State Prison on October 2, 1930. In the hours before his execution, the arrogance that had marked his behavior throughout the investigation gave way to visible terror. His hands shook as they were bound. He asked the guards whether the hanging would hurt. When they replied that they had never received any complaints, He asked for a blindfold so he would not have to look at the gallows. He was given a white handkerchief. He had to be dragged toward the execution room and pleaded with the guards not to make him walk so fast. He had to be physically carried up the 13 steps to the gallows. In his final seconds, he called out for someone to say a prayer for him. The hanging was not clean. The rope did not break his neck. It took 13 minutes for him to die. Sarah Louise Northcott served 12 years and was paroled in 1940. She died 4 years later. Sanford Clark served time in a reform school and then returned to Canada, where he built what those who knew him described as an honorable and respectable life. He married, adopted 2 sons, and died in 1991 at the age of 78. Arthur Hutchins, the boy who had stepped off the train in 1928 claiming to be Walter, returned to California in later life. He worked carnivals, trained horses, and eventually became a jockey. He married and had a daughter. He died in 1954. In the years after the case, he reportedly showed little remorse for what he had put Christine Collins through, suggesting that she must have known he was not her son, that it had been a kind of game they both played. That claim has never been substantiated by anyone who knew her. Christine Collins never received the compensation she had been awarded. She never stopped looking for her son. 5 years after Northcott's execution, one of the other boys Northcott had been accused of killing was found alive. That boy told police he had escaped from the chicken coop. The discovery gave Christine something to hold on to. If one boy could escape, perhaps Walter had too. She spent the rest of her life searching, refusing to accept that he was dead. She died on December 8, 1964, at the age of 75. Nobody has ever found definitive proof of what happened to Walter Collins. His name was never conclusively connected by physical evidence to anything discovered at the ranch. Sarah Northcott confessed to killing him, but her account was never corroborated by remains. Northcott verbally admitted to the killing and then retracted. Whether Walter is buried somewhere on that property, destroyed so thoroughly that nothing remained to be found, or whether something else entirely happened to him on the day he walked to the movies, remains an open question. In 1930, the small town of Wineville changed its name. The crimes that had taken place on the ranch there were so disturbing and the association so unwanted that the townspeople voted to be known by a different name. Today, the area is called Mira Loma. Wineville no longer appears on any map. A film was released in 2008 directed by Clint Eastwood and starring Angelina Jolie titled Changeling, which tells the story of Christine Collins and what she endured in her search for Walter. But no film, however careful, can fully account for what still lingers at the edges of this story. A woman who was imprisoned for telling the truth. A department that chose its reputation over a mother's grief. A man who confessed and retracted and taunted and finally died screaming for a prayer. And somewhere beneath all of it, a 9-year-old boy in a gray cap and a lumber jacket who walked out of his house one Saturday morning and simply never came back. Whatever the truth is, Christine Collins carried it with her until she could carry it no further. And it remains unresolved to this day. The kind of absence that no amount of time has ever been able to fill. The physical evidence may fade, but the stories behind these final traces endure. We look forward to reading your reflections and theories below. Thank you for your time and empathy today. Take care of yourselves, and we'll see you soon.